Good morning, everyone.
Right, Madam Chair, we are ready when you are. We are just waiting to see Director Roper, but you do have a quorum.
There's Director Savaro. I see you now. Thank you. Mr. Carr?
To answer your question, Chair Harrington, you do not require more than 3 members of your board to act.
Okay. We're having some interesting audio insertions. So anyway, welcome to the Tuesday, October 5th, Washington County Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting. Clerk Moss.
Thank you, Madam Director. The Washington County Board of Directors, now meeting as the Housing Authority Board of Directors, is now me regular session. Director Savara?
Here.
Director Willie?
Here.
Director Rogers?
Here.
Director Harrington?
Here. Commissioner Directors Pam Treese and Nafisa Fai are excused today as they are dealing with the deaths of members of their family. We wish them well. So we'll proceed with our agenda. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to speak with us today during public comment, our first public comment session?
Yes, we do, Madam Director. This first one will be Cheyenne, and it is an audio clip that IT will play for us for her up to 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Cheyenne. I'm sending testimony by video because I'm not able to attend the meeting. I am a senior handicapped and disabled individual. I specifically moved to Woodspring last year because it was a senior development, affordable, and in a community I've lived in for many years. Then 6 months after moving in, I got the letter from Mission Rock that said these apartments would be neither. I was so upset because my health is declining and moving again would be impossible for me. I would not have moved here had I known that in advance. It's not just the apartment that appealed to me, but a senior community, and more importantly, a way to stay close to family and friends. I feel safe here. It is quieter than other multifamily complexes I have lived in past decades. How amazing to be able to move to apartments that are located in an established area for seniors for the past 30 years. This is the best affordable housing I've ever lived in. It's not just a dwelling with 4 walls, but a residence that was meant to be my forever home. Please help me preserve senior housing by buying Woodspring from Hamilton Zane. Let me live out my life with dignity, security, comfort, and peace of mind as God had intended. I pray for an open heart and willingness of all parties to come into agreement for the better good of our neighborhood. I invite any member of the board to contact me to discuss the matter further. My phone number is 503-913-5608, or you can email me at ccheyenne603@gmail.com. Thank you for hearing my heartfelt plea.
Right. Madam Chair, I do not see our second person signed up, but we do have 3 at the end, so that concludes this part of public testimony.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. And for the benefit of our community members, we will have a presentation later in our agenda on the Woodspring apartment. So thank you. Moving on then to our consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of the minutes from our September 7th, 2021 meeting. What are the wishes of the board?
I move to forward.
Oh, thank you, Director Roper. And Commissioner Rogers has seconded that. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to presentations, and we'll get right to that Wood Spring presentation. I'd like to turn it over to our Executive Director of the Housing Authority of Washington County and his assistant, Comey Calabar, and his Assistant Director, Josh Kreitz. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning, Chair Harrington. Good morning, Housing Authority Board of Directors. My name is Comey Calabar. I'm the Director of the Housing Authority. I am here to provide on the work up to date between Housing Authority and the owners of Wood Spring, Hamilton Zands. I first like to provide a brief overview of the property. Wood Spring is a 172-unit apartment complex that was built in 1991. The units are all 2-bedroom, 2-bath, between 1,018 square feet and 1,052 square feet in size. Wood Spring was marketed and leased as housing for seniors older than 55 when it was originally built, with low-income housing tax credits, which requires those restrictions or choices. Unfortunately, the 30-year period ended December 31st, 2020. Households who were living at the Wood Spring at the time of the affordability period and would continue to live there for what we call a safe harbor period of 3 years up to December 2023. The property was originally, I think Hamilton Zands was not the original owner, but they acquired it in 2015. Housing Authority staff have been working with Hamilton Zands and their consultant to negotiate with potential paths to maintain affordability at Wood Spring. Several formal meetings were held in June and in August. The meeting was included the mayor of Tigard, city council president of Tigard, community development director of Tigard, community housing fund, the Network for Oregon Affordable Housing, and Housing Authority staff from Washington County. There was subsequent meetings. It is important to share that during this same period, residents at Wood Spring have actively opposed the end of the affordability period. The residents have organized a Wood Spring Tenants Association and have demanded ongoing affordability, and additionally that the property continue to be rented to seniors. One resident has filed a class action lawsuit against the property management company called Mission Rock Residential LLC. And the claim was that Mission Rock falsely advertised the property as a community exclusively for low-income seniors. The lawsuit is ongoing currently. Hamilton Zands has expressed to us, Housing Authority staff, that they are not likely to pursue maintaining affordability at the property if the lawsuit is pending. This means something has to happen to the lawsuit, and we have to continue our conversations, Housing Authority and the other partners I mentioned, between now and December 2023. While we at the Housing Authority are committed to pursue options to preserve the property, the issue of whether the property continues to be senior housing or one is the one that we are in agreement with Hamilton on. We understand from let me rephrase. The issue of whether the property continues to be senior housing is something Hamilton Zands is not in agreement with. And obviously for Housing Authority purposes, our preference is for 2 bedrooms to house more than one person, house families. So there's a lot to discuss, but this is just a quick preview. HAWK's mission, Housing Authority's mission, is to preserve affordable housing options, and we are committed to doing that work with our partners. Hamilton Zands, I believe their ownership interest is with several investment entities, and they have a meeting later this month about the path forward. and whether or not to pursue a public-private partnership. As I indicated earlier, they have indicated that they are willing to look into that, where all the units will be rented at 60% median family income or below, in addition to rental subsidy for a quarter of the units. Some form of rental subsidy. So the details is what we are working through together with our partners. Our housing authority team looks forward to continued conversation with Hamilton Zans on this potential partnership and welcomes further conversations with Wood Spring residents. At your request, we can provide additional updates to your board as the work continues. Thank you for your time this morning, and I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
Mr. Culliver, I just want to make sure that I heard your last portion correctly. You said that Huck is continuing to have discussions with the owner of Wood Spring and that Wood Spring might be willing to maintain some of the apartments as affordable units moving forward, but that those conversations are still ongoing.
Correct. Yes, that is correct. Some or all of the units as affordable. They are doing the analysis as we speak. They have put on the table, though, some form of rental assistance for a quarter of the units, plus a property tax exemption that comes with partnership with the housing authority are some of the things they are considering. And Network for Oregon Housing, Network for Oregon Affordable Housing, NOAA, Community Housing Fund, as well as the City of Tiger Community Development are all engaged in this effort.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So I follow the next steps. Other directors, do you have any questions about what we heard, what's happening right now? Go ahead, Commissioner Rogers.
Comey, I think we all agree it's a very sad event. People make assumptions about private property that sometimes don't prove to be accurate. In this case is privately held by some development company. You've mentioned the name, I don't recall it. And they're converting it. They have private property rights to do so, and you're trying to get some concession. I understand all that part, and I am sympathetic to the renters, but I also understand the private property rights argument they're going to make. If there is something that could be worked out, and you may want to check with legal because I'm interested in knowing the answer. How many more of these are there? We've done a lot of these units over the years where there's been public-private subsidies. Couldn't each and every one of them come to this board and ask either that they be purchased permanently as housing stock, or that there be some sort of subsidy to the present owners, who those private parties are? So I know we're talking about one single development, but this issue is much, much bigger than one single development. And so do you have any sense of what we're dealing with if we were to deal with every one of them?
Yes, good questions, Commissioner Rogers. The two, I don't know how many are in the pipeline. I do know the two that are most current is the Wood Spring and a second one called Bellow Woods here in Washington County. Bellow Woods also came up, the 30-year compliance period ended, and Bridge, which is a nonprofit housing developer, acquired that. We just got information today, actually, that they have successfully closed on the Bellow Woods. And the Wood Spring, which obviously was acquired by a private investment firm, it's the issue now. Those are the two that I'm aware of. There could be more, but they all end at different dates. So the ones that were built in 91, 92, 93, I think it's around 96 that affordability period changed from 30 to 60 years. I have to go check. But in the early 90s, it was 30 years. So there's a few more coming up. Thank you.
Comey, just to finish my thought, I think we need to take a comprehensive look, get that inventory and see what that is. Because I mean, this problem is not going to go away. I mean, we have others who are not able to make their rental payments at market rates. They're not going to be able to do anything other than to address their hopefully elected officials who are going to be listening to their concerns and try to find some pathway forward. But I'd still like this group to understand how big this problem is, what are the alternatives, and be proactive. And so instead of it hearing at the 11th hour, people are going to not to have homes, that we have some methodology to address it and work with our city partners who this one I understand is in the city of Tigard, and maybe they have some funds as well that they can make some commitments. And so we need to have a more holistic approach.
Commissioner,
yeah.
Oops, sorry. Commissioner Rogers, I can let you know that I had a discussion with Shannon Wilson, who's our development manager, a few months ago. And I know that she's been working on getting a list together of affordable properties within Washington County and expiration dates. And we're partnering with the Housing Authorities organization around the advocacy efforts for affordable housing preservation. So I know that the state legislature is doing a lot around increasing the budget around preservation. So it's a really good point, and we'll continue to kind of source up a good master list so we can really think about affordable housing preservation holistically for Washington County.
Director Roper, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm having connection issues today. So if I dip out, I'll be back in right away as I can. First thing I want to say, thank you, Commissioner Rogers. You took the question away from me, but I was going to ask the same thing. And I also wanted to say thank you guys for putting all your effort to get this update to us in a speedy manner since our last meeting and our concerns, because my heart really feels out for this community, especially the elderly, because they have a very limited source of income, their fixed income, and it can be very stressful, especially we already have other mental health and other stresses going on in these times. So thank you so much for giving us an update.
To be of help, and we'll get that list together. Shannon may already have it, but we'll get it together and send it out to all of you.
Wonderful. Yes. The sooner the better.
Yes.
Please don't wait to send the full HUC Board of Directors that information by email, and then we can highlight it at the next monthly meeting as well.
Okay. Yeah. The two for 2020 and 2021 is what I mentioned: Bellow Woods in Beaverton, and then Wood Spring. So that's what we are working on now.
Wonderful. And who did you say acquired Bellow Woods?
Bridge Housing.
Great.
They are also incidentally out of the Bay Area, but they have a Portland office. Yeah. And they are part of our Metro Bond development work. They have one in Aloha and one in South County.
Wonderful. Any other questions, directors? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much to our staff for providing us this update. We know this is a very challenging time for all of the residents that are affected by the transition of their home from being a protected property to full market availability. And we know that the deadline of the end of 2023 for that 3-year safe harbor is approaching faster than we would like. But please know that the Housing Authority of Washington County continues to be engaged with the property owner as well as the city of Tigard and exploring every available option. So thank you again. All right, next we'll move on to the action items. We have two. The first is related to HUD Section 3, Economic Opportunities for Low-Income Individuals, Administrative Guide. We'll turn it back to you, Mr. Calavar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Komi Calavo, Housing Authority Director. I would like to introduce Josh Kreitz and Will Seals, our asset manager, to you to take this forward. So go ahead, Josh, Will.
Well, good morning, Chair Harrington and Board. Josh Kreitz, Assistant Director. I'm just going to kind of kick this off a little bit and then hand it over to our asset manager, Will Seals. Next slide, please. So we're actually really excited about this. This is a really great program, Section 3. I'm going to explain what it is just very briefly before Will kind of gets into the details. But this is really an exciting opportunity. Staff have been working on this plan for the last couple of months, and it's an opportunity for us to engage with our residents, to engage with contractors, and to engage with our community as a whole as part of this. So Section 3, under Section 3, this is a HUD requirement. Housing authorities need to provide employment, training, contracting, and other economic opportunities to low and very low income persons to the greatest extent feasible. And this program really is a contracting opportunity, looking at HUD funds that are coming through the housing authority and helping building out opportunities again for low to low income persons. So that's the gist of the Section 3 program at a 30,000 foot level. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass it on to my colleague here, Will Seals, who's our asset manager, and he's going to take the next couple of slides and talk a little bit more specifically what he's been up to with this plan.
Thank you, Josh. Good morning, directors. It's a pleasure to be here. It's exciting to share this opportunity we're about to endeavor on. So the CFR was updated. It was pretty robust, but there was 3 areas that it's going to impact our department. The first is going to streamline our reporting requirements by creating a portal. HUD's creating a portal for us to report into. It also added a reporting exclusion for housing authorities under 250 units, which we are one of. We will not have to report on or track labor hours worked by Section 3 residents and report on those. And lastly, it clarified the obligations, our reporting obligations. So there's 14 qualitative measures that HUD has outlined, and we're going to get into those in a little bit. I'll just touch on a little bit. Next slide, please. So the impact to our operations, again, I just want to remind the board that this is only going to impact our HUD-funded service contracts. It will not apply to materials contracts or professional services contracts. Secondly, this is really going to increase our resident outreach and engagement. We'll increase these efforts in order to facilitate a conduit between our vendors and our residents that express interest in training and employment opportunities that come up through our contracting efforts. And then thirdly, we will be promoting businesses to receive their Section 3 registration status. Again, this will help open up more opportunities for these small and emergency businesses in our community. We're also going to be working in partnership with the Office of Equity and Inclusion and Diversity to kind of align some of the county goals as well in this plan. Next slide, please. Here's just one example of how our contracts are going to be adapting to the change. So all of our vendors are going to be required to submit a hiring plan, basically just outlining any opportunity or for training or employment that they anticipate during the duration of their contract with us. This will then, we will also be working to create a database of our residents through some of our outreach efforts, and hopefully align those nexuses when they do come up. Go ahead, next slide. And I think Josh is going to go ahead and touch on this slide real quick, and then I will wrap up the next slide.
Thanks. Well, so we really are looking to increase the amount of engagement that we're having with our residents and our community, and we're going to build that up over the course of time. And we'll explain that we have some staff dedicated to this to take on this work product. So we're going to be doing everything from questionnaires to different types of engagement events. We're going to be reaching out, Will mention this, first with our public housing residents. We have around 250 units of public housing. We're going to start there. And as you're aware, we also have our housing choice voucher residents, which, there's over 3,000 residents, around 3,000 households in that program, sometimes with multiple family members that qualify. So then we're going to begin expanding it there. and then our Section 3 coordinator, who we'll talk about briefly. They're going to be doing bigger and larger outreach events. It really is a good program, and getting it to scale is going to be exciting. We've seen that it can have really good impacts and create a lot of job opportunities for not only our residents, but also other community members within the Hawk jurisdiction. Next slide, please. I think, Will, you're going to talk a little to this one.
Yep, I'll talk on this one real quick. Thank you, Josh. With the new changes, we imagine HUD and there's going to be other stakeholders. They're going to be monitoring this program for positive and measurable outcomes, which we're excited to be reporting on as we start to quantify them. I had briefly mentioned that there was 14 qualitative measures outlined in the CFR. And while I won't go through each of, here's 7 of them, just to kind of give you a taste of what they're hoping to improve in this program. Again, I won't go through all of them, but I think there's one common element that each of these are sharing. And basically they are to create opportunities in training and apprenticeship programs. One area that we're excited to explore and put some effort into is developing partners with programs such as Constructing Hope, Youth Build. There's some different school programs as well that offer both apprenticeship and training opportunities for adults and youth. So this is, again, something that we're excited to expand on and see what it can do for our community and our residents. And I think I'm going to go ahead and give the last one to Josh, and thank you, board members. Go ahead, next slide, please.
Thanks, Will. So the question is, the Housing Authority is doing another initiative here. And again, this has been ongoing, but we're putting a lot more effort towards this. So how do we do it? Anna Kuzma, who works for will be kind of our Section 3 coordinator. She's going to be focusing on 3 really core areas here: procurement and contractor outreach. There's some bullet points in there. Again, I won't read through them all, but that's just really facilitating the conversation between our residents and program participants and contractors. Section 3 outreach. Again, we just want to increase the amount of outreach we're doing, and that could be through surveys, it can be through education and apprenticeship opportunities, and just really ensuring that we're doing really great outreach to those who have the opportunity to be part of this program. And then, of course, as a housing authority, we need to comply with what our friends at HUD tell us to comply with. So we'll ensure that we're meeting all the reporting requirements regarding employment and other economic opportunities under Section 3's HUD online portal. So that's what the staff that Will has working and will be working on for us. We're excited about that. Next slide, please. So it was kind of a brief overview that we wanted to give the board, because staff have put a lot of work into this plan. They took several months to put it together and really make sure that we're hitting all the points and be thoughtful about how we implement this important program and partner with other areas of the county within it. So we'll stop now. If there's any questions or comments, we'd be happy to take them. Thank you.
Directors, any questions or comments? Okay, not seeing any. Go ahead, Director Savaro.
Thanks, Chair Harrington. Just want to mention and maybe try to understand the moving to work process. I'm curious how, because one of the cool things I remember you all highlighting around moving to work is that eventually we may be able to look at rent costs and how we modulate rent costs as a function of their income, compared to how we do it right now, which is really just a flat 29 or 30% of their income is how we generate the rent. I understand that with moving to work, that might change for some of our residents, and there's some. I'm just curious if you're seeing a nexus here between sort of this initiative to try to help folks get access to higher paying jobs and better career opportunities. Like, do you see that connection forming in the future, or is it, how do you work through that, I guess? Because I think that's one of the challenges with the design, honestly, around public housing, is that sometimes we penalize folks for doing better. And so being able to really think through how we're not continuing that problem, and so that when folks do better, we celebrate, and we it's a win for everyone. So how are you thinking through that?
Yeah, thanks. That's a really good point. We'll be bringing forward to your board probably in the upcoming months here our first slate of moving to work activities. We're having a lot of conversations first with HUD around of what rent reform is going to look like. There are some, as you know, tiered rent stuff that we just have to do. But one of the key components of moving to work, there's three components. One is help work-able residents increase their earned income and move towards self-sufficiency. So we're absolutely going to be looking for opportunities here with our MTW flexibilities in partnership with the community, our residents, and your board on different activities that we could bring forth and make these types of connections for folks to employment opportunities. Whether it comes directly through a Section 3 contract or not, we'll see, but that's absolutely something that we could look to explore as we implement MTW, and we're implementing and improving upon our Section 3 program.
That's great. And one follow-up, if it's all right, also want to just highlight again, I think, Will, you mentioned this, that you're going to be working with the diversity team at the county to really think through how you're rolling this out for culturally specific organizations to try to get access to, as well as thinking through those partnerships. Again, just want to highlight, the part of the reason why folks, especially communities of color, have been impacted and have the need for some of these services is because of systemic racism and hiring practices and access to employment and access to housing, right? And so being able to really think through those larger issues and thinking through how we're designing a program to support those communities specifically. I love that you're all are thinking that and engaging that expertise already. So just wanted to say that and mention that I think that's a really important part of how we're thinking through, reaching out to residents and reaching out to the right cohorts of folks. So just really happy to hear that as part of the plan.
Thank you, Director Savaro. Other directors, any questions? Director Roper.
Thank you. So Josh, just like a quick follow-up, this is a great program. I see great opportunity. We've had many different programs through Washington County. Sometimes the funds run out, or the grant only lasts a certain period of time. Now, with this tier level that you have with Move to Forward and job opportunities and connecting with other vendors, are you going to connect them with maybe other nonprofit organizations to teach them how to do savings, to save those funds in a healthy manner to reach self-sufficiency, towards a goal like FSS has, how to buy a house? Would you work with other entities for home purchasing opportunities when their contract ends, things like that, to help them be self-sufficient and off of welfare, or just being that lower class kind of thing?
Thanks, Director Roper. I think I'll answer your question just kind of broadly and kind of quickly. I think through all of our activities, from moving to work, we're going to be talking about Section 18 and Section 32 in our next presentation. We're looking for opportunities that will allow our residents to find different job training programs, increase their earned income, find different home ownership opportunities. And I think broadly, MTW is going to give us the opportunity to engage again with our residents, the board, and the community on what are those priorities that we should bring forth and elevate, things that we could never do before that now we have the opportunity as an MTW agency to do. So we're excited to bring forth many new initiatives that I think will match right along with what you're saying. And on the home ownership thing, stay tuned for a couple minutes because Will be updating on that with our Section 18.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. First, I want to state that both in the memo that was in our packet as well as today's presentation, the theme that you've really brought forward loud and clear is that of opportunity, 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 and helping folks develop their skills, experience, and work abilities. Josh, you meant, to my question, Josh, you mentioned the experience of Section 3 programs. So it got me wondering, I don't have a feel for, has Washington County, Hawk, had a Section 3 program like this previously that is knowledge that you're building on? Or is this the first time that we have had the opportunity to pursue this, and therefore the experience that Josh, you were pointing to, is that from case studies from elsewhere? Can you help me appreciate that a little bit more?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I'll probably ask Will to kind of pull in on this. So I would say what's really driving this like initiative are changes at the HUD level, and it's a really good opportunity for us as an authority to kind of do a reset and reboot on the Section 3 program. So we've had a Section 3 program. I've had the opportunity to work with it on a very large scale in previous places where we've just been able to really drive major real estate development contracts and have really large scale hiring happen through our Section 3 program. For example, up in Seattle, where we had several major redevelopments. So we had really a large program going on there. I think this opportunity that now that Will has taken the lead on this program is for us to really reboot it and really drive this initiative a lot further. I don't know, Will, if there's anything you want to add or if I've covered it.
No, I think you captured it perfectly. So we are also reaching out and partnering with our FSS program as well. So it's just with the qualitative measures that had outlined, there was a lot that was already in line that we were already accomplishing. So it's just kind of putting it all in lockstep. So and that's really our goal.
I know that Director Roper is fully moving down the tracks with you quickly on what FFS stands for. I'm a little slow on all these different acronyms. Can somebody remind me of what that stands for?
Sure, yeah, FSS is the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. So in essence, families can identify self goals and then just work towards those goals. Whatever their goals they establish, so home ownership, purchasing of a new home, continued education. So yes.
Once I knew what the acronym was getting at, I was like, yes, of course the light bulb goes off. But sorry, I just struggle with so many abbreviations from the whole portfolio of our work. Thank you for all of your patience with me. This is really an exciting opportunity for our community members. And I am grateful that we have the three of you and others, as you've mentioned, on your team who are real experts at taking advantage of program offerings and opportunities that are available to us, both through our federal partners as well as our state partners, for the benefit of our community members. Thank you. So seeing no additional questions or comments, we do have a request to approve the Housing Authority of Washington County's HUD Section 3 Economic Opportunities for Low-Income Individuals Administrative Guide. Do we have a motion to approve that?
I motion.
Motion from Director Roper, a second from Director Savaro. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Director Savaro? Thank you. Anyone opposed? Thank you, directors. It's unanimous 5-0. Next, we'll move on to our second action approval. This is for a resolution and order in the removal of homes from Section 32 application to be added to the Section 18 application. And we've got our great staff to explain what it means to go from one section type to another section type. So take it away, experts.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. So yeah, this one was a fun one for me. So I told Will, let me do the first slide. I'm going to kick it off to you, but this is to give us an opportunity to make a HUD required technical fix, and it's a natural opportunity for us to give you an update. But before we give you the update, I want to explain again what Section 18 and 32 are. So next slide, please. There it is. Okay. So Section 18 is a HUD program for public housing. It comes down to it being a demolition and disposition program, and that's to dispose of public housing. That happens for a number of different reasons. Sometimes you're moving it into a different program, you're turning it into a tax credit property. Sometimes the properties just aren't fit to be run as housing anymore. Your board in 2019, April 2019, approved the disposition of 60 units of single family home properties in 2019. This was back when I first started. And just as a reminder, the reason for it was that the properties are dispersed throughout the county. It's making it hard to keep up on maintenance and just HUD capital funding. As you may recall, and actually some of you may not recall because you might not have been on the board at the time, the plan for the proceeds of the sale will be to purchase multifamily affordable housing with the proceeds of the sale to replace. And anybody who where the house is sold, there'll be a voucher given to them. It's called a relocation voucher. Will's going to talk a little bit more about an update on Section 18 in a couple minutes here, but I just want to give a quick recall on that one. So that's Section 18. Section 32 is simply a public housing home ownership program. It allows individuals either in public housing or in our programs to purchase public housing. So it's a separate program. It's kind of a disposition in itself, but it allows individuals to buy public housing. So it's a home ownership program. This board in 2006 approved inclusion of 6 properties in a Section 32 program. 4 of these properties were never sold. We surfaced that in our Section 18 application that went to HUD. They came back and said, hey, there's some properties out there. So that necessitates us being here today to request a technical fix that HUD requires. So what we'll be asking for today in the resolution is the removal of 4 units from that Section 32 in 2006. And what we want to do is 2 of those units will continue to be operated as public housing. And then we'll be seeking approval to add 2 of the units to the Section 18 application. Okay. I think I explained that. Hopefully that I was talking with Brad.
And if I may real quickly,
yeah, please comment.
The total is not changing. It's still up to 60 homes that will be disposed of.
Yeah.
I didn't want to use any section. So the total is not changing.
That's right.
Up to 60 of our 244 public housing units will be disposed.
That's right. Thank you. So that's why we're here, but we thought it would also be a good opportunity. Next slide, please. To give an update on where we're at with Section 18, because we came in 2019 and here we are a few years later and we're still going through the process. I can just tell you from my experience, we're working with our field office and something called the Special Application Center, the SAC, out of Chicago. These disposition projects take a lot of time. There's a lot of back and forth. It's very technical to remove these from inventory. So we just thought it'd be a good opportunity for Will to give a quick update on where we're at and some of the work we're doing around partnerships for potential home ownership opportunities. So I'll turn it over to Will to give that update.
Thank you, Josh. Yes. So just a quick update. So I understand, as Josh was explaining, that as our application is slowly being ushered along the process, I just wanted to give a quick update of what's been going on behind the scenes and some milestones that we have reached that we're happy to report on. So again, we have partnered with some our jurisdictional cities, our partners, to assist families in pursuing homeownership if they express interest in doing so. There's going to be resources that are going to be made available, such as down payment assistance and other programs to really help lower the bar of barrier into home ownership. And we're excited to keep moving along there. We were successful in already hosting our first informational session with our residents that expressed interest. And we've also partnered with Proud Ground and Vienna Star to offer homeownership and home buyer education classes to further prepare the families in their homeownership goals. We're planning to host a second event in the upcoming months. Again, just to ensure that all the families have equal access to this opportunity. And then the homes will also be working with our city partners and to see if they want to purchase the homes as well for to preserve their affordability in the community. So, but that's kind of what's been going on behind the scenes. We'll be excited for new updates to the board as soon as they develop. Go ahead, next slide, please.
Yeah. And I'll just mention really briefly that there's been other work around like environmental reports. So how to come back after we turn in some paperwork and say, hey, we need you to update these environmentals for these properties. So it's just been that back and forth between us and the Special Applications Center and our field office. And like I said, from what I've experienced in my career, that's pretty common. These dispositions are really complicated stuff. So today, again, we come back to your board requesting an amendment to 2006 Section 32 plan by removing the 4 units and closing out that program. And then we request that 2 of the 4 units be included in our current Section 18 application for the disposition of 60 units. And then we continue to operate the remaining 2 as public housing units. Next slide, please. With that, we're happy to take any questions or comments that your board may have.
Directors, any questions, comments, or motion? Director Roper, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, Josh. I got the windmill, but it won't let me open the open it up. So my question to you is, like I heard, or this might be for Will. You guys said that you're going to hold a second event for people for home buyer information. Does this list go out, invite go out to just low income families? Is it invited to anybody, or even housing authority current residents?
Yeah, so currently the invitation is just for the impacted families. So the homes that they've been residing in, they're just having the first opportunity to purchase the homes. And those are the families that we're targeting with this, yes.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a quick comment as well. It's with some sadness that I see this. I understand the necessity. I don't disagree with the process and what needs to be done. But back about 10 years ago, I commented about how it would be nice to move people forward from always being in a rental mode to owning their own home. It's one of the most powerful things you can do to build equity, and one of the most powerful things you can do to give people self-sufficiency. At the time, HUD restrictions said you can't do that. And I said, well, that seems kind of foolish. We could take and get money from the federal government to pay somebody else for you to rent, but you can't get it for you to buy your own home. And so I know that's been somewhat relaxed and dealt with, but I hope someday some board at some time rediscovers the opportunity to say that even though we're becoming more cosmopolitan and larger edifices of living and multi-units and all that sort of thing, that there's certainly still some value in having single ownership and having people with yards who can do that activity if they are so inclined, and have a place for their kids to play and all that sort of thing. So I hope, and I guess I'm just commiserating here a little bit. I hope that once again that we explore those opportunities, some board, sometime in the future. But I certainly support.
Director Rogers, I'm sorry, but I'm really confused by your comments, because that's exactly what this program is helping to enable.
We're going to buy larger units, though, aren't we?
No, we're providing, as your comments suggest, we're working with existing residents,
right,
to provide them with the opportunity,
right,
of home ownership and to help them with their residents.
I get all that, but how about the future? How about future residents? How about more folks in an expanded program?
Oh, I see.
That's my point. That's my point. It probably wasn't well stated, but that was my point. We were trying to expand that and do all of that. And I understand, and that was a question of Carolyn when she asked the question, well, is that going to be only the low income, or who's that opportunity for sales of current properties? But anyway, I understand what we're needing to do. I understand all of that, but I'm always worried about the future and all those people yet to come. I mean, it's frankly, for people like me, that distance is not too far out. But for a lot of people, they're starting their careers, they're starting their families, they're starting a lot of things. So I'll stop, but to say that's my thought.
Okay, seeing no other director questions on this, do we have a motion to approve the resolution for this removal of homes from section 32 application to be added to the section 18 application? Motion from Director Roper, a second from Director Savaro. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. So that brings us to the end of our action agenda. And now we'll move on to our second period of public comment. Thank you, staff, for being here on all of those items. Thank you, Mr. Seals, for your excellent work with that of you and your team as well in managing all of these assets and programs. So Clerk Moss, who do we have who wishes to speak with us now?
Director Harrington, first we have Heidi. Heidi, please unmute yourself and please go ahead for up to 5 minutes. Heidi, can you hear us?
Heidi, it looks like you muted yourself again. We're ready to hear from you.
All right, Madam Director, we will move on the next and we'll try to work with Heidi. Next up is Margot. Margot, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed, Ms. Black.
Thank you very much. My name is Margot Black. I'm a tenants' rights organizer and activist in the Portland area, although I was a longtime Washington County resident. I'm the organizer helping the Woodspring Tenants Association organize to preserve their affordable senior apartment community. One thing I want to flag right at the beginning is that I would have a lot more residents here, but it's actually really, really hard to figure out how to engage with this board through the internet. A lot of my seniors don't have smartphones. They don't have email. I wasn't even able to find a snail mail address that they could send correspondence to you on the website. They have to go through a web form in order to email any of you guys. I can't, pass out regular email addresses. I just want you to know that I'm a highly educated, very tech savvy person, and I have found it to be a little bit challenging to, get to these meetings and figure out how to testify. So I want you to know that I would have a number more seniors here telling you their stories, but frankly, I've been overwhelmed with trying to figure out how to get them here to these meetings. And so I really just want to flag that right away. I also want to say I'm a little bit glad that I didn't have more here this morning, because while I really appreciate Director Comey, Kevlar, and staff's report on Woodspring, I found it a bit depressing and distressing. In particular, there is a lot of creativity and courage that could be used to help preserve this community. Yes, Commissioner Rogers, this is private property. We do have some limitations with regards to that. On the other hand, it's the job of government to regulate private property and these types of transactions. There are a number of regulatory tools that Washington County could investigate and deploy. In particular, the Portland Relocation Ordinance, which I helped create and draft in 2017, requires landlords to pay relocation expenses for when they raise the rent over a certain amount and it causes an economic displacement. That is something that Washington County could look at. You also are the place, where this developer, this owner will, be looking at buying more properties, will be taking out permits. You can use your muscle and make it harder for them to do business. One way or another, they need to hear from you that Washington County is really serious about preserving this community. And one of the things one of the main ways I want to discuss right now in the rest of my time is through buying that property. It's our understanding that Hawk has scoped out the potential for buying this property and has discussed that with the owners. When I have met with Commissioner Kelevar, sorry, and the Housing Development Manager, Shannon Wilson, what they both said is that they need to see a stronger signal from Hamilton Zands that demonstrates that they are willing to sell. That being said, Hamilton Zands just sent out a newsletter to all 172 of its residents, letting them know that no legitimate offers or potential offers have been put on the table. So they have just communicated to the residents that Washington County has not expressed any interest in buying the property, which is a surprise for me and those folks who have been in some of those meetings, because we have been led to believe that Washington County is interested. To that effect, since one of the other things brought up in either the questions or Director Kelevar's presentation is the work that our legislature is doing towards preservation of affordable housing. One thing I want to make sure that you're all aware of is that $100 million was allocated at the end of this most recent legislative session for housing preservation. To put that in perspective, that's more than has been allocated since 2007 to 2019 combined. And that was right after Representative Dacia Graber, the representative for the Woodspring apartment complex, read out loud on the floor of the House the OPB article about Woodspring apartments. The legislature wants you to preserve this property. You need to decide that you want to buy it and go down to the legislature and ask for that money. And what we did not hear in Director Kelevar's testimony was the urgency of that need, of Washington County deciding that they are going to move heaven and earth, that they are going to investigate all levers possible to push and pull in order to procure this property and preserve it in perpetuity as affordable housing. I understand that there is a desire, that if this were procured, it would be family housing. The seniors at Woodspring feel very seriously about the importance of maintaining a quality senior housing community. We understand that we may need, I think the important thing is buy the property first, and then we'll figure out the details later. We'll continue to lobby for it to be senior housing because that's what the original builder in 1991 made news talking about the importance of high quality senior housing for seniors. And I think we need to preserve his legacy and remember that these are the folks who work.
Thank you, Ms. Black.
Thank you very much.
Next up, Madam Director, we have Sheila. Sheila, can you unmute for us?
Sure. This is Sheila Greenleaf-Fink. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Housing Fund located at 3700 Southwest Murray Boulevard in Beaverton, and also serve as a Housing Advisory Committee member. So very grateful for the diligent and dedicated service that you get from Comey and Josh and others, Will and Shannon. So just wanted to say appreciation for the discussion on Woodspring, obviously critical issue that we're all facing, but wanted to comment. And I would agree with actually the Margot who's just spoke that it is a little bit challenging. Yesterday I thought, I've not commented on Housing Authority meetings, and there's a couple issues I care greatly about, Section 3 and Section 18, and so maybe I'll just do that. And it is a little bit confusing to know whether you're signing up for the board, Housing Authority board versus the county commissioners, and whether you're doing it at the beginning or end of the meeting. Maybe just doing it regularly would, make it clear cut. But I think most people aren't going to do that. They're going to jump in and out when they see things that are most, seem most critical. So just tying together some of the comments you made, Chair Harrington, opportunity, and Chair Rogers, homeownership means a lot to a lot of families. And these two things really can help connect those by bringing opportunity home to folks who are pretty marginalized a lot of times by income, by race, by life circumstances. So the ability to get job training, to get access to great living wage jobs that construction provides is really something that you and the Housing Authority and Department of Housing Services have a lot of opportunity to influence. So kudos for the work that the commissioners overall have done on equity and inclusion and procurement and thinking about that. Also for the additional engagement and outreach strategies that the county is working through all its departments. So I think all those things will make a difference. Section 3's been around since the horror on poverty started in the 60s. You know, it started before that, but certainly 68 is when it went in. And I think it's really been revisited because it wasn't doing much and HUD wasn't really sure, how do we enforce it? What does it really mean when you say you've made the maximum, feasible work towards making sure your own residents might benefit from HUD investments in your community when you make them? So it's a great strategy, and it requires a lot of intention and leadership to really make meaningful. So kudos for the work done on updating the guide. Have had an individual opportunity to talk with Will and others about these strategies. Really excited. Section 18 as well. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity for those residents and for others for 60 homes in Washington County in a region where homeownership is just out of reach. So just want to say again, the work that goes into making those meaningful can bring opportunity home for people who really, really deserve it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Greenlaw Fink. Clerk Moss, who's next?
Next up is Sharon. Sharon, can you unmute? Sharon, can you hear us? There you go. Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, Madam Director, we'll try to work with Sharon. Is there anyone else that wishes to provide comment for this portion of the meeting? Please raise your hand. Madam Director, let me try one more time with Heidi. Heidi, can you hear us? Can you unmute? Looks like, Madam Director, that they are unable to connect, so that is everyone we have signed up today.
Righty. Well, I'm sorry that we weren't able to hear from Ms. Johnstone and Ms. Heaton, as they certainly took time out of their day to join us today. I would like to ask our staff, both Mr. Carr, Mr. Kalavar, Mr. Kreitz, all together. We have heard a comment about the property owner of Wood Springs saying that no legitimate offer has been made. And you have also communicated to us, not only today, but in prior meetings, that you have worked with the property owner about the potential of purchase, as well as additionally maintaining affordability, no matter who owns the property. So I just want to come back to you and have you reiterate the facts about where things stand today and moving forward.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, Board of Directors. So before you make an offer, the property has to be for sale, and they have indicated to us, at least, that the investors are meeting later this month to decide what to do. But the initial indications we get are they are intending to keep the asset. Now, you are free to make an offer before an asset is put on the market, but then that would inform the price as well. I mean, it could be worth a lot more if you make an unsolicited offer. Based on market rate rents, the property is worth between 38, maybe 40 million. So, I mean, it's a sizable asset, and it could be that we asked them to clarify, but we didn't know they were accepting offers or entertaining offers. We know they own it, and it's private property, and they have indicated they are interested in working with us to preserve the building, and to preserve the building as long as the lawsuit is not pending.
Okay.
And the lawsuit is pending as we speak today.
Yep. So thank you for clarifying that we didn't know that they were willing to sell, if I heard you correctly, and that they've currently not offered the public for sale, and that as far as you know, they have a future meeting with their investors. Okay.
Yes, they do.
Thank you very much. Are there any other points of clarification before we move on? Okay, it's just past 11:06. So what I'd like to do is entertain any board of director announcements. Directors, any more comments? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn today's Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting?
Motion.
We have a motion from Director Roper, a second from Director Savaro. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. The Housing Authority Board of Directors is hereby adjourned. See you next month. Clerk Moss, I believe we're using the same link for the Washington County Board of Directors meeting. Is that true?
That is true, Madam Chair, and we are ready to, I'm ready to go with the announcement for you. All right, the Washington County Board of Commissioners also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and all other county service districts is now meeting this regular session, October 5th, 2021. Commissioner Willie?
Here.
Commissioner Rogers? Chair Harrington?
He's here.
Here.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Commissioners Pam Treese and Nafisa Fai are excused today. They are each dealing with recent deaths in their family. Before we move forward with the Washington County Board of Directors meeting, I just want to come back to our arrangements for the work session this afternoon. I realize time is pressing for this Board of Commissioners meeting. Commissioner Willie has to step out between 12 and 1 for another meeting. Given that there's just 3 of us this afternoon, we're going to reschedule item number 3 about Ordinance 878 for another day. We will still proceed with reconvening in work session and follow up with item number 4, the Homeless Encampment Program update. Item number 5, the Construction Career Pathways Project C2P2 draft policy, as well as agenda number 6, Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities Rulemaking Update. This action plan was put forward as a result of my convening with Ms. Calvert, Mr. Carr, as well as the policy assistants for both Commissioner Treese and Commissioner Fai. So they wanted to make sure that we knew that both of those commissioners do want us to proceed with item 5, and items 4 and 6 have a timely element to them. So all set, commissioners, on the plan for the afternoon? Okay, thank you. Okay, for today's business meeting, we don't have any agenda changes for me to report. We have, so anyway, we'll move forward. So first item on the agenda is public comment. Clerk Moss, who do we have signed up?
We have no one signed up for this portion. We just have one signed up for the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of 12 items, a set of minutes for September 7th, 2021, 1 item from the Office of Community Development, 3 items from Land Use and Transportation, 5 items from Health and Human Services, 2 items from Support Services. What are the wishes of the board? We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Willie. All those in favor of adopting today's consent agenda, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 3-0. I would like to, before we move on to proclamations for a National Community Planning Month, I would like to take the opportunity to share a few comments on behalf of the whole board. So many cities and states across the country have shifted from observing Christopher Columbus Day, which is next Monday, October 11th. They've shifted from that to acknowledging and honoring Indigenous Peoples Day. Several months ago, the Oregon State Legislature passed House Bill 2526, recognizing the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm taking a few moments today to share that for us, the Washington County Board of Commissioners, we are working with our staff on a Native American Heritage Month proclamation at our October 26th meeting. Don't ask me where March came from. October 26th. I did not mean to confuse folks. So for today, on behalf of the board, I would like to share some simple remarks in order to honor and respect our Native American and Indigenous neighbors, their culture and contributions, and perseverance as well, despite generations of colonial challenges. Indigenous Peoples Day is about recognizing the trauma, broken treaties, promises, and genocide instigated by Christopher Columbus, and reminding the cultures destroyed and remembering the cultures destroyed by colonial nations, and recognizing this continued struggle with colonialism. Our local communities have been built on Indigenous homelands. We commit to a reciprocal relationship and respect, protect and acknowledge the rights and culture of Indigenous peoples, recognizing the history, status, and continued challenges. Washington County is partnering with Native communities to honor them and their contributions. We're co-creating strategies for continued partnership, ongoing community conversation about healing and the resilience of our Native and Indigenous neighbors. Please do join us at the County Commissioners meeting on Tuesday, October 26th, which will be an evening meeting starting at 6:30 p.m. for Native American Heritage Month proclamation. And also, please be on the lookout for future Board of Commissioners discussions about an Indigenous land acknowledgement. Thank you, everyone, for letting me share those comments on behalf of our full board and agency. Next, we'll move on to our former proclamation to proclaim October 21st as National Community Planning Month in Washington County. And here with us is the Director of our Land Use and Transportation Department, Stephen Roberts. Stephen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate the opportunity to come before you today and request that you endorse a proclamation for National Community Planning Month. This is an annual celebration of community planning and an opportunity to celebrate the work that a lot of our community members do in helping us to shape what our communities look like. And that includes our appointed planning commissioners, and obviously you as our elected board members have a lot to say about the way that our community gets planned. And so it's an opportunity really to just appreciate all of that work that happens amongst engaged community members and also our staff here. And in LUT, we have our community planning group that we'll be hearing from a couple of folks in just a minute about a land use ordinance, so maintaining the comprehensive plan. We have our transportation planning section, And then we have our current planning section. So the actual, where the rubber hits the road, so to speak, of implementing all of those comprehensive plan elements for specific development applications. So I just want to thank everyone for all the work that goes into doing this good work. And again, appreciate the opportunity to celebrate this proclamation. And then we do have a brief video, and I believe Clerk Moss will read the proclamation.
Just give us 1 second, Madam Chair. We're just having a little technical difficulties with the video.
And I think we could skip over that if it causes any delays.
Yes. Thank you, Director Roberts. We'll just move on to the proclamation, and we appreciate staff's time with the board schedule today. So proclamation, National Community Planning Month. Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, boroughs, townships, rural areas, and other places, community planning and plans help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how we live, work, and play. And whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningful, involved in making choices that determine the future of their community, and whereas the full benefits of planning require public officials and community members who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. And whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories, and whereas the American Planning Process and Professional Institute, the American Institute of Certified Planners, endorsed National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight the contributions and sound planning and plan implementations to make the quality of our settlements and environment. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us an opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of members of planning commissions, elected officials, and the many community members who contribute their time and expertise to the improvement of Washington County. And whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by professional community and regional planners of Washington County and extend our appreciation for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now, therefore, be resolved that on this 5th day of October, 2021, the Washington County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the month of October 21 as Community Planning Month.
And that was the American Planning Association, and we have several staff members who have credentials and participate with the American Planning Association and the American Institute of Certified Planners. Several of us have had the opportunity to see the AICP acronym before, but I did not know that it stood for the American Institute of Certified Planners. I just had forgotten that, so that's good. I see a hand raised. Now it's gone. Okay. Clerk Moss, let me just check. Thank you for reading the proclamation, but have the technical difficulties regarding playing the video been resolved?
It looks like they have, Madam Chair.
Great. Let's play it. very much for putting that video together. It really does highlight the extent of work from the department with regard to community planning and making good things happen across Washington County. Commissioners, would you like to share any other comments, questions, or motion to adopt today's proclamation?
I would move for the requested action, but thank Stephen, you and Andy and Teresa and many more that are behind the scenes as well for all the work that you do. You've had many, many, many years of service to Washington County, and it's been outstanding. So I'm happy to make that motion.
And we have a second from Commissioner Willie. Thank you very much. We appreciate the work that the department does each and every day, and it was nice to get that full year highlight as well. So all those in favor of adopting today's proclamation declaring October 2021 National Community Planning Month here in Washington County, please vote by saying aye or raising your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Anyone opposed? The motion passes unanimously 3-0. Next, we'll move on to a little bit of something related to that work, which is we have a upcoming ordinance to consider. But before we have a public hearing on that, we first need to read that ordinance by title only. Do we have a motion? A motion from Commissioner Rogers, a second from Commissioner Willie. All those in favor of reading this ordinance by title only, please raise your hand. Thank you, colleagues. Any opposed? That passes unanimously 3-0. Mr. Carr, if you could so do us the honors.
Proposed land use ordinance number 877, an ordinance addressing minor amendments to the Community Development Code affecting certain rural land use districts to align with state statute.
Thank you. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Karina Rendez, an associate planner in community planning, is going to walk us through the staff report, and then myself, Teresa Cherniak, our principal planner for community planning, and Andy Back are all available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Harrington, Commissioners. I am Karina Rendez, as mentioned, Associate Planner in Community Planning, here to present the staff report for ordinance number 877, Minor Development Code Amendments to align with state law. Next slide, please. So a quick overview here. This ordinance proposes to make minor amendments to the Community Development Code, or CDC, for consistency with changes in state law. These changes were authorized in the 21-22 Long Range Planning Work Program. Notification for this ordinance did include a Measure 56 notice due to its potential impact of template forest dwellings to limit property owners who have multiple lots and parcels to a single dwelling. Next slide. So just a little bit of background to help understand this ordinance. In the county's rural areas, the state actually limits development outside of urban growth boundaries to preserve rural land uses and avoid the need for urban services. Resource land for farm and forestry is subject to state planning goals for agriculture and forestry. These resource lands were largely determined by soil capacity. Valley soils, good for farming, are centrally located within the county in the exclusive farm use and agriculture and forest AF20 districts, while soils suitable for timber production occur in the west and north of the county in the foothills and in areas with steeper slopes. These are designated exclusive forest and conservation district. The uses allowed in these districts are identified in Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 215, and therefore we also call them statutory uses. Next slide. So I'll just briefly go over in the next couple of slides the changes that are proposed in the original filed ordinance. And again, these are all changes to conform with state law. revise permit extension timeframes for certain residential developments in the 3 resource districts, allow temporary portable on-site septic treatment facilities in specifically the EFU and AF20 farm districts. And those districts also update the existing allowance and special use standards for schools and for processing facilities. For these processing facilities, we needed to add poultry processing as an allowed use and then cover very small facilities. Next slide. And then changes that are specific to our exclusive forest and conservation district: allow dump truck parking subject to health and safety standards, clarify forest plantings, also called stocking requirements, and clarify that those requirements only apply to lots greater than 5 acres when new dwellings are approved. And then we're tackling that template forest dwelling standard, making a lot of changes there. In the course of doing so, we did reorganize the standards for dwellings to give them some titles and just make them clearer for people. And again, the changes for the template dwellings did require a Measure 56 notice. It does limit property owners to a single dwelling per tract, when possibly some people might have had the potential for more, so it did require that Measure 56 notice. Next slide. So we did receive public comments on this ordinance. The first set of comments we received from the Department of Land Conservation and Development indicated that there might still be some remaining inconsistencies. And we did cover all 3 of these things in the staff report, but they are the septic application. It's really a very narrow use. The processing facility for farm products, we said 10,000 feet or less. It's really less than 10,000 feet. And then school expansions, there's an additional caveat that you must have been established prior to January 1st. We're not sure that we have any schools established after that, but better safe than sorry possibly there. We had community members also make some comments. The original language about the schools was confusing and introduced the idea that some schools were new. And what does it mean to be a new school, especially if you change locations? And then we also heard that parking trucks may have environmental impacts on soil and water quality, while the operation of trucks may have negative impacts on livability, such as noise, in and out of property, and hours of operation were all raised as issues. Next slide. So in response, we have proposed to do a few things different to the filed ordinance. We'd like to clarify that size limitation of less than 10,000 square feet for processing facilities. Make sure we clarify that that septic application must relate to agricultural, horticultural, silvicultural, or irrigation purposes, add a requirement for the date of establishment for those school locations, and clarify the kind of the exemption to the UGB proximity standards really only applies to certain existing schools. Next slide. So, bottom line, Planning Commission did vote 7-0 to recommend that the board adopt with proposed changes through an engrossment. So the items mentioned for the engrossment, PC did support all of those. They did spend a fair amount of time talking through some of the dump truck parking concerns that were raised. There is a bit of a tension between our local interest in possibly applying additional standards and the statutory limitations as far as, which things might actually health and safety regulation. The kinds of issues that were raised in the meeting aren't really, or have not in the past been considered health and safety standards. So there's really no legal precedent for doing that in this context. Next slide. So, go back a slide. I'm sorry. So, in response, we have discussed the idea of possibly tackling some additional voluntary local use standards, but doing it as part of a voluntary ordinance process, so in a future ordinance. Next slide. So at this time, staff's recommendation is to conduct the public hearing, order engrossment of the ordinance to reflect the changes shown in attachment 3 of the staff report, and then continue the hearing for the engrossed ordinance to October 26th and November 2nd, and direct staff to provide notice as required in Chapter 10 of the county charter. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available to take any questions the board may have.
So I have a question, Mr. Carr. This is the first time I've heard about a voluntary ordinance. What is a voluntary ordinance?
I don't know. I've not heard that term either.
So, board, good question. What I mean is this ordinance is full of things we have to do. We are also proposing other minor amendments to the Community Development Code that are things that we're going to want to do. And that is what I meant by voluntary ordinance. It's not a legal term in any way. It's just there are some things we may want to do, and then there's things we have to do.
So, Mr. Roberts, could you please clarify for me? We're moving forward today with a recommendation for an engrossment on this ordinance, which brings us into compliance with current state requirements and law. Is what is being referred to something that we might consider in a future work plan?
That's correct, right. So
it's not presuming that we will, but we might consider it in a future work plan.
That's correct. That's a great way to characterize it. So I think what Ms. Arendez was trying to say, we have some mandatory things that we're doing with this ordinance, and then we have a potential voluntary standard that would exceed what's required in the state statute that could be considered in a future ordinance.
Okay, but we're not making any decisions on that today.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any other questions beyond what I asked on the staff report? Seeing none, I'd like to open a public hearing. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone signed up to testify on this public hearing?
We have no one signed up, Madam Chair. Would any member of the public like to provide public testimony on this public hearing? Seeing no hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And with that, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, I would like to entertain a motion to order the engrossment of the ordinance to reflect the changes shown in attachment A of the staff report, and to consider the hearing for engrossment ordinance to October 26th as well as November 20th, and direct staff to provide notice as required.
Madam Chair, I would clarify that second hearing date would be November 2nd.
Thank you. I said the wrong thing.
Thank you.
I would so move other than we're not considering, I would say to continue it to those 2 dates. So beyond that, I so that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Willie. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 3-0. So we will move forward with the continuance of the hearing for the engrossed ordinance to Tuesday, October 26th, which is an evening meeting, and then our daytime November 2nd meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes today's section of public hearings. We do not have any action items for today's agenda. So next we have our second public comment period for the meeting. Clerk Moss.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have Mr. Jim Long. Jim, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. I'm testifying, reading a letter that was submitted last month to you for the Committee for Citizen Involvement, which is a body of representatives from each of the Washington County community participation organizations. Washington County looks to both the CCI and CPOs to gather input, assess interest or concern, and provide feedback about emerging and ongoing issues. The CCI endorses this testimony. The Significant Natural Resources Subcommittee was formed due to the serious need for community attention and representation regarding the loss of significant natural resources in Washington County. There is intense evidence across the internet that loss of trees and habitat negatively impact climate adaptation. The CCI SNR subcommittee is requesting that the Board of Commissioners increase the community involvement in the climate challenges discussions. As we can see, and there's a table below in that letter, published on Earth Day 2021 in the Board of Commissioners agenda notes, your board has a very aggressive schedule toward drafting a climate change initiative for Washington County. But this timeline doesn't break community input and involvement. There are many members of the Washington County community who are climate change advocates and have a wealth of knowledge to make available to the Board of Commissioners to advise them and provide support to the task forces which may be assembled. The CCI-SNR subcommittee is requesting that these community members be contacted to be actively involved. We are also requesting that the Board of Commissioners make a more prudent effort to engage the Washington County community at large for input regarding this incredibly important topic. Thus far, at the August 21 Board of Commissioners meeting, we saw some discussion with commissioners, clean services. So far, we did not see an action plan, nor any concrete steps, nor tasks identified. The sustainability program has been very focused on the internal mechanisms within Washington County public agencies. We have not seen the very essential plan for the climate adaptability and mitigation for the huge number of residents, businesses, and agriculture areas, which actually can make a far greater impact. We agree with Chair Harrington that we need to take action soon, and we need to look at varying scenarios. The Washington County community is an excellent source for this assistance, and not just in a single town hall. We recommend forming a stakeholders task force, a real project team, working together with the Washington County agencies and others to come up with pragmatic solutions. As can be seen in the table above, As you can see in the table above, the climate change initiative and planning closely follows the timeline of fiscal budget planning. Any kind of task force needs to be resourced and incorporated into the fiscal plan to be effective. Please feel free to call upon us for assistance in this community engagement and outreach. Thank you. And this letter has also been sent to Robin, the Sustainability Manager. Thank you. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony today, Mr. Long. I would just like to add a point of clarification. As Mr. Long indicated, the Washington County Board of Commissioners did have a meeting to discuss the operations of both Washington County and Clean Water Services, for which we are the board of directors, to better understand as the board in 2021 what our two agencies have been doing for operations which are considered sustainable, taking care of our planet and best utilizing the assets of our community in our service delivery for our varied community residents and businesses. Beyond our current operations and making sure that we are staying apprised of state requirements for climate adaptation, we do not have any specific program with regard to developing any new policies as the Washington County Board of Commissioners and the Board for Clean Water Services. If and when we do such a thing, we greatly value the very engaged community members that we have in all kinds of forums, including through our community partner organizations and the Committee for Community Involvement. So thank you very much for everyone's consideration as we move forward. Clerk Moss, is there anyone who may have raised their hands today?
Is there anyone else that would like to provide public comment? Yes, we have one, Madam Chair. Carol, can you unmute?
Yes, good day. I'm Carol Greeno. But I would be busy. Got free a few minutes early. I would like to commend you for talking about doing housing tax credit developments in our county. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
It cuts in and out a little bit. Keep going.
I'll do the best I can.
Carol, are you still there?
I apologize. I seem not to be able to be heard.
We can hear you, Carol. Please keep going.
Okay. The state of California has done an inventory for the whole state of similar housing developments, and I think it's a good model for us to look at. I'm going to approach our state to do that and would love for Washington County to do the same thing, to ask the state to look at those houses which will age out over the next 30 years, actually, and have some kind of an agenda for how we're going to manage what's going to be an increasing crisis. So thank you, and I appreciate your attention to this.
All right. Thank you, Carol. There's no one else, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about the audio difficulty, Ms. Greenow. Okay, next we'll move on to board announcements, and we have quite a few today. So our board packet includes the announcements for the Washington County Board of Commissioner meetings that are coming up. This Thursday, we have a roundtable in the morning. Next Tuesday, we have an extended work session day starting at 8:30 in the morning. Related to that, that's Tuesday, October 12th. And in the afternoon, we'll have a time certain joint meeting of the Board of Commissioners with the Washington County Fair Board. That meeting will run 1 p.m. to 2:30 in the afternoon. On Tuesday, October 19th, we'll have our standard Board of Commissioners set of meetings. Work session starts at 8:30 and a board business meeting at 10. Around that date, on Monday the 18th, Wednesday the 20th, and Thursday the 21st, we'll be meeting as the Clean Water Services Board of Directors. We have a public meeting notice in our packet, which lets folks know that on Monday, we're meeting from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Durham Water Resources Recovery Facility in Tigard. Then on Wednesday, we're meeting at the same place, but on Thursday, we're going to meet at Ripple, the Research and Innovation People Laboratory located in Forest Grove. Then on Tuesday, the 26th, the last Tuesday of the month, we'll have our work session in the afternoon and our board meeting in the evening. And then we're greeting the month of November on Tuesday, November 2nd, with our trio of meetings, our work session in the morning, followed by the Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting at 10, and the board meeting following on, hopefully by 10:30. Those are the board announcements I have for today. Commissioners Rogers and Willie, do you have any board announcements additional you want to share today? No? Okay, great. Well, luckily we've managed to get through our full agenda before Commissioner Willie needs to depart for another meeting, and the rest of us have the opportunity of a lunch break during that same time. Commissioner Willie, would you like to have some additional time so you can grab lunch before or after your noon meeting?
No, that's okay. You've given me 14 minutes right now. I do have a pre-meeting that I'm going to use, but I'm going to eat my lunch during that pre-meeting. So I'm good.
Okay.
I've got it all taken care of. So thank you.
Okay.
I'll see you all at
1 o'clock.
when we reconvene at 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we will plan to reconvene in our Washington County Board of Commissioners work session. If seeing no further comments from commissioners or from our leadership staff, I would entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting of the Washington County Board of Commissioners.
So move.
We have a motion from Commissioner Willie, a second from Commissioner Rogers. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 3-0. We are hereby adjourned. See y'all back in work session at 1 p.m. Thank you.